Romance anime protagonists are a very interesting subset of characters. The first thing that comes to mind is a bland guy who somehow gets the most popular girl in school to fall in love with him, and that's definitely a fairly earned reputation. But it is selling it a bit short. Some romance anime start with this cliche and slowly turn it into something much more interesting, and others take a completely different angle right from the jump. The more I watch, the less true the stereotype seems to be. Today, though, I want to look at two specific romance anime protagonists, Gojo from My Dress Up Darling and Hachiman from my teen romantic comedy SNAFU. Just from a character design perspective, both definitely fit the initial brief. Normal, maybe a bit bland, though Gojo is gigantic and Hachiman has his distinctive eyes. And both have women fall in love with them. But they each bring their own special ingredients to the genre formula, leading to completely different characters and stories. So I want to dive into these two protagonists, looking at what works about each approach to the starting point of any romance anime. This time, I want to start with some things that these two have in common, because on the surface they are completely different. But once you look a little closer, similarities start popping up. Both Gojo and Hachiman are unfamiliar with social life at the start of their stories, and learn about companionship as they go along. They are much more like caricatures in their first seasons, too. Gojo is extremely anxious and panicky around Marin in Season 1. And Hachiman's misanthropy is one of his only defining character traits early on. They are played much more for comedy, in other words, when we first get to know them. Love is not at the front of their minds, taking multiple seasons for the feelings to really start to develop. Both of them are inherently helpful people, though Hachiman is obviously much more withholding. Their romantic interests come to love them for the support they offer throughout the story. On that note, both stories are slow burns, with Gojo and Marin yet to get together after 2 seasons, and Hachiman and Yukino only getting together at the very end of the 3rd season. Some of these similarities are blanket to a lot of romance protagonists, but Gojo and Hachiman also have some more unique things in common. Hachiman is the first protagonist we'll look at in depth. His romance story is part and parcel with a broader story of growing to like and rely on others. When we first meet him, he is a cartoonishly jaded character, disgusted by anything to do with socializing or relationships. Hachiman views himself as above these barbaric social structures, his narcissistic superiority driving many of his decisions. Even his helpful acts towards others in Season 1 are rooted in the idea that he understands everything better than anyone else. His sacrifices for others are like that of a self-obsessed martyr, and it takes until Season 2 to start pulling that back. There's pain in giving up his hatred, learning to listen to the feelings within himself and from others. This process takes up most of the 2nd season, where Hachiman slowly crushes himself under responsibility and loneliness, rather than coming to rely on anybody else. The joy we feel when he finally relents is both a celebration of him becoming closer with his friends and relief at this struggle finally coming to an end. Early on, Hachiman is mostly without motivation, happy to drift through school unnoticed. This lack of direction is what leads to the entire story, when Hiratsuka punishes him for turning in a bad assignment by forcing him to join the Volunteers Club with Yukino. Speaking of, the development of his relationship with Yukino starts with hostility and gradually thaws into romantic feelings. It's more of an enemies to lovers arc than anything else, but that's selling it short. The love triangle of this series is its defining dynamic, and a huge deviating point for Hachiman in our comparison. When it comes to forming a romantic connection with Yukino, it's not just about putting aside his reluctance, he is also actively choosing not to be with Yui. His choice to love is tied to heartbreak for another. Love comes with repercussions in this anime, and that's part of what gives it its own niche in the space. At the center of that is Hachiman, who starts a jaded misanthrope and ends up a valued friend and partner. Moving on to Gojo, his development thus far through My Dress-Up Darling has been about drawing a connection between his work and his relationships. At the start of the series, he is an introvert who is obsessed with his work on Hina dolls. He views the world at a distance, like Hachiman, but from a very different place. Gojo carries a naivety towards companionship, silently longing for it. When Marin enters his life, it's not due to his own actions. She literally comes crashing into it in miraculous fashion, and their friendship gets off to a quick start. This abbreviated introduction plays off of Gojo's insecurities to make him feel unworthy of such friendship. Even later into the series, you can still feel his inner struggle to reconcile his newfound social group with the life that his introverted past self had resigned himself to. This personal growth comes mostly with minor hitches, his relationship with Marin mostly rosy and fun. They're both grateful to each other from the start, and the deeper feelings grow out of that appreciation. And that's a really key difference there. Gojo and Marin have their little stumbles on the path towards love, but it's played for laughs and stays mostly lighthearted. A far cry from Hachiman's existential crises, I will say. But even when Gojo is finally realizing his feelings for Marin at the culture festival, there's an innocence to it that stands out. By having a character that hasn't given much thought to love in the past, the show gets to outline what love is in its own terms. I think that this makes it particularly powerful, a distillation of one character's feelings towards another. Contrast that with the muddiness of the love triangle of my teen romantic comedy SNAFU. Both are great, but for completely different reasons. Gojo's effectiveness as a protagonist comes from the clarity of his person. He's a nice guy who cares about his work, and we get to see how he grows and changes as Marin becomes someone important to him. In Season 1, I found his character a bit flat, but Season 2 did an awesome job of playing his straightforwardness against a larger set of friends and situations. I want to take a moment to talk about the role that mentors play for both of our protagonists. Hiratsuka and Gojo's grandfather both help to guide our friends, but in different ways. Hiratsuka is the catalyst for the entire anime, pushing Hachiman and Yukino together in the first place. Throughout the series, she plays an overseeing role to the club's operations, stepping in from time to time to guide things along. Gojo's grandfather is very different in his deployment, serving a much more limited role. He is a mentor to Gojo primarily through the Hina dolls that they both create, which then leads into other avenues for guidance. He and Marin interact, but his mentorship is generally reserved for just Gojo. Despite their differences though, both mentors focus on interpersonal relationships when it comes to their advice. They see the introversion that grips the protagonists, and try to help them grow. Hiratsuka helps Hachiman see the why behind feelings, and why love and companionship are important things to cultivate. Gojo's grandfather uses the lens of Hina doll work to help Gojo think about why he does the things that he does, and how his work can help share his love with others. Both shows are about love at the end of the day, and these mentors help give our main characters clarity on their growing feelings. My Dress-Up Darling and My Teen Romantic Comedy SNAFU both feature protagonists that start as loners and slowly grow to understand love and friendship. Gojo begins as someone engrossed in his work, deriving purpose from the brushstrokes on his Hina dolls. But when Marin comes crashing into his life, his fears and insecurities slowly give way to appreciation and confidence. Hachiman, on the other hand, starts out disgusted by people in general. Any interaction is an inconvenience to him, a waste of time. But as he slowly intertwines his life with Yukino and Yui, learning how his actions impact them and their feelings, he begins to care himself. Two completely different shows, with two entirely different paths to love. But our two protagonists are heading to roughly the same end destination. It's fun to see what they have in common, as well as how wildly they differ. And that ends this week's episode of Split Screen. If you enjoyed, liking and subscribing helps a ton, as does hitting the hype button on the mobile app. As always, drop me suggestions for more romance anime to watch. I'm getting caught up with my current watch list, so I need more ideas. I'm SlamAnime, and I'll catch you on Friday for Love and Anime.